how do you think this forum is important for the African debate?
I think what's important that this forum provides the opportunity for a very frank and constructive discussion. And it brings Africans and Europeans together in an equal manner, in a partnership. And the ideas are developed by both sides. It's not one side just putting an agenda and for the other side to submit to this agenda. I think this is what we need. The second thing is that certainly there is a lot of benefit and opportunity for Europe and Africa and vice versa. So we can complement each other. It's a win-win situation. And I really appreciate the launching of this forum, which 5 years ago by Ambrosetti and the foundation of the Bank of Sicilia. I myself was ambassador to Italy from 2006 to 2011. And when the foundation of the Bank of Sicily and the Ambrosetti came with this idea, I think me, along with other African ambassadors, were very enthusiastic about this forum. And we even participated in the initial stages of participation. So we welcome it. We find it's a very good tool to upgrade the relationship between certainly Africa and Europe, but also Africa and Italy and Sicily. And this is very important to both sides.
Okay, and now let's talk about Egypt.
Please.
When the regime is going to change, the military regime?
There is no military regime at the moment. There was a regime change on the 11th of February when President Mubarak left office. When he left office, he assigned the management of the country to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. Okay? And by popular support, this decision was agreed by the people. So we don't have another regime. We have a transitional period where there is a caretaker civilian government and the Supreme Military Council of the Armed Forces is managing the country. This transitional period should end. And there is a timetable which will start on the 18th of November by elections for the lower house of parliament. And then we'll have also elections for our Senate, which is the upper house, in January, February, where the process of building up the new parliament will end in March. After March, they will select a committee to draft a new constitution, because you know when the previous regime fell, the parliament was dissolved, the constitution was suspended, so we don't have a constitution, we don't have a parliament. Now we are in the process for a parliament and then the drafting of the constitution, and then this constitution has to be put to referendum, and then they will open the door for candidates for the presidency. So we hope by next year the full institutions, civilian institutions of the government are in place. So the role of the now the Council of the Armed Forces is to manage the country, is to safeguard the revolution which happened, because I think everyone appreciates that the armed forces of Egypt did not really stand against the people. They stood with the people. And what made this whole revolution succeed is that you have the young people, as I mentioned yesterday, launching this or initiating this process, and then they were joined by all sectors of society, and then the armed forces stood by them. These three elements made us succeed. What we need now is to go as soon as possible back to normality. We have a transitional period and it has to be done because all the institutions have fell, except a caretaker government and the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. We hope to end this transitional period soon. Egypt needs a civilian government, a civilian president, and needs to go back to its traditional role of being a leader in the Middle East and a peacemaker in the Middle East.
Okay, now that the Arab revolutions, it's quite almost a year that they are done with Egypt and Tunisia first. And
less than a year, it's December. We're still in the same.
And Do you think some says that it's all managed through secret services by the West? Do you agree with this?
No, I don't agree. Of course, everyone recalls that at a certain stage there was this talk about the greater Middle East, and you have heard voices, particularly in the States, by the new conservatives, speaking of creating what they call creative chaos in the Middle East and changing regimes. I think this is, I don't want to say a word like ridiculous, but this idea did not materialize. What materialized, that the change came within, not from outside. The change came from within the people in the different countries because of reasons which I explained yesterday. You have authoritarian regimes who stayed in power for too long. For Egypt it was 30 years, for others might be more. There were poverty, irrespective of the high rate of growth we had, but there was no social justice. There was unemployment.
So maybe it was a revolution
from inside
for stopping neoliberal policies.
No, it was not for stopping liberal policies, but it was a revolution to change a status quo which existed in these countries for so long, Egypt and others. But it's not the idea, this ridiculous idea of creative chaos or a greater Middle East. I don't believe that this is the case at all. These forces who made change are internal forces who are basically seeking the interests of their countries, including, of course, Egypt or Tunisia or whatever. This spring or autumn will stop where, I really don't know. But it is clear that now, in this age, people need to have a country which reflects their needs, which corresponds to their needs. And the youth are no more really negative. They want to be positive and they want to contribute in building their countries. This is what we hope to see in Egypt.
Okay, and last question.
Please.
How do you see the Libya situation? Many Africans are saying that what is behind NATO is just a recolonization of Libya. Do you agree with this?
Certainly, again, the same factors which I spoke before, which initiated the uprising in Egypt and maybe Tunis before, is that there were regimes which are in power for too long, and authoritarian regimes. They were not responding to the needs of their people. Of course, in Libya you have not only a revolution, but we see a civil war up till now, by the way. And then there is a big question mark about this foreign involvement, where NATO, in fact some Arab countries also joined NATO, played a part in this civil war. You have heard yesterday one of the speakers mentioning that there are economic factors behind France or the UK or even Italy joining this campaign. Of course, as an Arab, I really would have not liked any foreign intervention. I would have liked that you leave it to the Libyans to try and solve the problem internally on their own. But as you see, things went through a process where there was foreign involvement. I don't think this was right, but I cannot really, if the Libyans accept it, I cannot judge for them at the end of the day. What we hope to, because Libya has a different structure than Egypt, and I hope that the Libyans would build up the country in a way which would keep it unified, which would keep institutions who are seeking to modernize Libya, not to bring Libya backwards. Libya is a country of a lot of resources and potential, and I don't want to see Libya fall in the middle of a struggle between superpowers or countries who are from the West, who are trying really to either manipulate or to remanage the resources of the country in a way which might not be in the benefit of the Libyans. So I hope, I'm not speaking about Italy in specific, because I know Italy has a traditional relationship with Libya, and I know that Italy is keen not only to preserve its economic interests, which is a fact of life, you have to do it, but also to keep a friendship with the Libyans, because you are one of the countries which have taken steps to close a chapter in our history with Libya, which was a little bit negative, and open a new chapter which is possible. I hope you keep this irrespective of the regime in Libya.